Howdy folks, welcome to show number 62, Green the Earth and Sea. Today's date is April 21st, 2017. Welcome to the Scannell Agenda. Now, to green something in our present tense these days means to, let's say, green it up or make it environmentally sustainability sensitive, you know, the whole genre there. So we need to green the earth and sea. That's the job. That's my job with the Scannell Agenda. That's my main purpose. I have some little tidbits I do besides that. But to green the earth and sea is the biggest deal right now on the whole. It's planet-wide, it's what we got to do. We all got to turn to and green the earth and sea. Now, when I'm talking about water systems that are based on the existence of the Tripe System, T-R-I-P-E, or track pipe, it's a monorail system that has pipes for water, sanitation, broadband, natural gas, oil, you know. And when you talk about sanitation, you're talking about different pipes for different breakdowns. You know, you got your number one, that's urine. Your number two is obviously your black water or your dry fecal matter. So number one and number two, we all know the basics, but then you get into breakdowns such as number two with compost. So we need multiple conduits. So the Tripe system, or track pipe system, is a multiple conduit system, and it can be instrumental, if not imperative, to saving this planet Earth, or green the earth and sea. We got to green the earth and sea to save the planet from a catastrophe. Who knows, an asteroid could come and smack us after we're all done. But, you know, it's probably a pretty sensible challenge to choose and to have an achievement on, to green the earth and sea. And when you green the earth and sea, what you'll be doing is bringing down the carbon dioxide, CO2, in many different ways. You'll be stopping the production of the CO2 with the Tripe system, because with the Tripe system, the fuels are the compressed air as a fuel. And if you think about very highly charged up compressed air, you know, when I was a kid, I saw a little article, as I had mentioned in the past, and this was that they had a little go-kart, I believe it was, powered by compressed air, scuba tanks, actually. And I said, hey, look at that. That's pretty nifty. And nowadays, if you Google up compressed air cars, you know, there's all kinds of compressed air cars. And there's hybrid compressed air and gasoline-powered cars. I haven't Googled that up lately and checked up on it, but last time I checked, it was pretty darned impressive over there in India, what they were doing to green the earth and sea. Now, when I say green the sea, what do I mean by that? Well, as we desertify the oceans with overfishing and improper fishing methods that ruin the habitat, and as we take out the stocks beyond all reason, you know, we're leaving the ocean in a desertified or desert-like condition. Desertified. It doesn't mean having too much dessert. It means taking the ever-loving life out of the sea. And it's kind of crazy, but that's what we're doing. Worldwide. Mostly people follow us here in the United States of America, but we're not setting a good example for habitat, stocks, or infrastructure. And I go on and on about that on this little program that I have, the Scannell Agenda, but it doesn't do any good because no one watches the show. So I hope to get into a higher level of work with, you know, some help from University of Rhode Island and Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And I have a proposal that I'll go over with you It's called Free Power and Plenty of Fish. And this is something I proposed years ago to Cape Cod Community College, and they turned me down. 3 out of 4 departments said yes, and the science department said no. So I need a science department with some vision, creativity, and ability to do brainstorming, because that's what I am. I'm a brainstormer. And while I'm doing this, I'd like Pam, I asked her if it was okay if I mentioned this today, to go to Harvard Divinity School and have a seminar or 2 on prayer and pizza, and let these kids pitch in on prayer and pizza. And I think that might be the mission for my wife, Pam, to really make her famous and make Jesus front and center with a lot of kids, too. And I think she can pull it off. If anyone can, she can. She's got such a strong faith. So we'll see. I'm not the preacher. She's the preacher in the family. But I appreciate it. So Pam and Steve might go to college. Steve and Pam go to college. So to green the earth and sea, you want to use 2 of my best projects. That's the Tripe System and the market quota system. The market quota system came first, and then I started working on windmills and energy systems. And by happenstance, I figured out that I had to produce offshore something other than electricity to send in on wires. I had to find a way around the problem of intermittency, when the wind blows and then it doesn't blow. So you need a stable source of power. So I got around that, and I solved that with compressed air, something I call ORCA, or oxygen-rich compressed air, and then, of course, hydrogen. So these are the 3 green fuels of the future, as I've been mentioning on the shows that I've been doing. So it's very important for us to get off of these fossil fuels. And this is how to do it. You do it with a monorail system, which gives you all kinds of ridiculous advantages on the cash flow side of a project. So you can have a communication system that is centered on the Tripe system, because you can have a conduit for the cable of all kinds, fiber optic cable, for instance. And you won't have to be digging up anything much, because you'll have these monorails will be going everywhere, into every village, because they'll be bringing in energy, communications, they'll be bringing out any sanitation products, and I call these bioproducts. And I've done a few shows on that. So I think that's very important to greening the earth, because we are all producers of bioproducts. We produce the number 1 and the number 2. But these then get mixed, typically. They get mixed. And what happens is the 2 bioproducts, the urine and the fecal matter, lose their value. When you mix them and add water and you add bleach and whatever else you're adding, you lose the value of the bioproduct. Shower water mixed with urine and mixed with your kitchen sink drainage. Let's just say that would be gray water mixed with pee. Yeah, pee. And then you'd call that grapey. Now, to take all these products and then add a little bit of water, and you don't need much, because we produce a lot of this waste with, our shower water, our urine, you flush the toilet, you know what I'm talking about. So now you take all of that mess there, and to me, it's just a matter of practicality right now, because of the CO2, that you plant plants that we're going to use in a closed system. Now I'm talking about closed systems. I'm not talking about radishes, growing radishes. Closed system. Closed system, okay? Now that means that when we pump or truck our waste to a site, and it could be a small site in your home, outside your home rather, in your backyard, and people would look at it and they wouldn't even know they were looking at a biotreatment plant. But hey, that's the way to green the earth. Why pump it 7 miles away when you can just have a little tiny facility of, 28 little, let's say, red maple in our area here in New England. You can plant red maple, and that will love to have a little wet environment and just soak up all those waste product nutrients. Now, so that's about greening the earth. The Scannell Agenda is all about greening the earth because it's a situation now that if you look at the charts with the CO2, and this is such that it's getting so bad now that you're going to acidify the ocean, and we're going to start very soon, within 3 or 4 years most likely, seeing major disruptions in the environment. And one domino knocks down the other, and we're going to say, oh, well, we had no idea. We just, well, I knew it would happen years and years ago. I never had to be convinced. Never, never, never. So these kind of things are within the grasp of the mission of the Blue Economy brainstormers. And so working with MIT and University of Rhode Island on this project I call Free Power and Plenty of Fish, what we'll do is scan all this work that I do. And as I mentioned in a story many shows ago, a guy I was a thorn in his side, he was on the SHAB board with me, Steve Bender, said, you're a real pain because, only 1 in 10 of your ideas is good. 1 in 10 ideas of yours is good. And I took that as a huge compliment. Oh, like that was flattery beyond all measure. But I'm not that bold. So I would say 1 in 30 of my ideas might be pretty good. I think I'm a little bit safer. So it's probably not anywhere close. If it's 1 in 100, then, if you look at this stack here, this is maybe a little more or less in a year. I probably do 10 or 20 or 6 or 8. I'm not sure on average what I do. All these little subsystems that I work on, water systems, sanitation systems. Now the water systems that I design are based on the track pipe system or the Tripe system, this monorail system. So no one else is designing what I'm designing because they don't design based on the Tripe system, but I do, and I've been working this way for years now. And in fisheries management and in the field of aquaculture also, no one designs the way I do because I design based on this pay-to-play, pay for the poundage you land, whether you're commercial or recreational, this system of poundage rights allocation rather than give it away for free with no conservation attached. This craziness that we're involved with now. With the market quota system, I base my designs on that. I base my designs on having some money to play with, like a farmer would have some money to play with. He wouldn't be able to just spend, but if you've got some money to work with, then you can do some things like you can green the farm up, you can increase your health of your soil and the soil competition, and you can try this and that and experiment, and if you work hard, you can buy more property, etc. So my systems of fishery management are closely tied to the economics of agriculture, in that you take some of the proceeds from the profits and you put it back into the farm. In this case, it would be the sea farm. So I see nothing wrong with doing that. And also, if you don't do that, you're just going to be foraging. If we don't get off this foraging and get with it, oh man, down the road, we're just going to be begging for more and more trouble, because looming in the background is all this global warming stuff. A wave is going to crest and just bury our little boat here. We're not going to even know what happened. We're going to get hit with an 80-foot wave right over our stern. It's going to sink us if we don't wake up and start greening the earth and sea. Now, a lot of this stuff too fits in with something I call a mega system for food, soil, and recycle. And that's a system whereby we incentivize good soil, we incentivize recycling, and we incentivize good holistic, food, especially for the children, I would say. We want to incentivize designs for a good national water system. We need a nationalized water system plan to develop our water resources. Canada and the United States and Mexico should be sharing in this venture. Canada and the United States can help Mexico out and give them some water. After all, we do take a lot of water from the Columbia River, which used to just dump into the Baja there. So, water rights. Oh man, if you get into water rights, and wars have been fought over fishing rights and water rights and grazing rights and all this. So that's a mega system: food, soil, and recycle. So sanitation systems, not necessarily nationalize them, but we should be having some incentives for forward-thinking systems like mine to be developed and prototyped. Cape Cod would be the perfect location for doing that, especially for these, we have so many houses, small houses, 3-bedroom homes, 4-bedroom, 2-bedroom cottages, and they have, you'll see some of these built-up mounds as a leaching field. Well, that would be about it, but you wouldn't see it, and there'd be some trees growing, or some bamboo, or what have you. You can do a lot with a little with biotreatment. You'd be surprised. With good sand filtering systems and then pumping out some, using what you need and what you can use and what you can't use, you pump to the Tripe system. These are centralized and decentralized systems at the same time that can be very handy for the Cape and Islands region to lead the way with sanitation hardware, biotreatment hardware. So we got to green the earth and use all this stuff. And at the same time, also, just as big of a problem as the global warming is, just as big, and if you don't get onto it, we're all going to just go down with the ship here. This oligarchy, it's a conspiracy theory, but pretty much everyone that has a brain understands that we're getting raked over the coals, and our national debt is going skyrocketing through the roof, and all these financial institutions and our money and currency systems are being hurt by this whole, I don't know what you want to call it. I call it the oligarchy conspiracy. You can call it the establishment mess. There's too many people taking from the government, and they're set up, and they got something good going on, and the other guy in the oligarchy, let's say, they've got something good set up, and that's all going well for them. So these oligarchy people, as I would call them, they just don't want change. These are Democrats, and some of them masquerade as progressives. I think Hillary Clinton was probably the champion oligarch masquerading as a progressive. She was really making a lot of tried and true progressives kind of sick to their stomachs by, saying one thing to the rich and another thing to the poor. So I would call myself a progressive for sure, but the party hack mentality is going to sink us, and the oligarchy is going to sink us, and this is just as big of an issue as is the environmental issues, the global warming, climate change, the energy crisis. I'll lump that all together, and all that stuff there is just as big as the oligarchy. And it's kind of like if the boat is sinking, you've got to figure out 4 or 5 or 6 or 8 different things all at once, and you've got to get them done in order, or your boat's going to sink. Let's just put it that way. So we got to get this oligarchy mess handled. And if we don't do that, we're going to have a really tough go of it to do anything progressive like this Tripe system or the market quota system. These are all green systems. I guess since I got in a little skirmish with the liberals here in Massachusetts, I'm off the table, huh? So these oligarchs are very, very, very shallow people. They consider themselves to be the lords of power, and they control the power. And that's just as big. That's a big problem. It's just as big of a problem as our water systems, sanitation systems, and these systems that we don't have yet. If we don't get a handle on our own democracy, it's like having a boat that's going down and the guy that's running the boat is on the radio telling the captain what to do. That's what I'm talking about here. And the guy on the radio on the other end, he's not going to sink. He'll do just fine. He just wants more money. Remember, I had an analogy, you know, because the nuclear power plant, again, is in the news. They don't want to cost the nuclear plant too much money, so they're letting them slide on some safety gear. Exactly. And my analogy was that the old boat, the old wooden boat years ago, would be fished either until it sank or until people looked at this boat and said, I'm not going out on this boat. So that's about a pretty good analogy right there with the nuclear power and the old wooden fishing boat of years ago. Now today that's not so much the case. But when I was a kid, yes. So the money in politics, I did a show on the Scannell Amendment to take money out of politics. And that's very important that we start at positions that make sense to start on. I've had discussions with people that think that we need to amend the Constitution for other reasons and then get on the money in politics. I think money in politics is primary. We need to kind of do a little house cleaning on the oligarchy people. These are the people in both parties that have the money people squarely in mind, and they're put in place by the money people, let's face it. So, now, that sounds pretty much like crazy talk, but most people agree with these conspiracy theories that say basically the rich are raking us over the coals. I mean, Republicans and Democrats, both, the mainstream people in the middle, both agree we're getting raked over the coals by the rich. But I would say the pathologies are to be found in all classes. Poor and disabled, I know those pathologies very well, along with their caregivers and government workers. I would say I'm an expert, not so much in mental illness itself, but in the systems for the poor and disabled. Now, these are all voting blocks, if you look at it too. Everything is a voting block with this oligarchy conspiracy. And we got to straighten this all out. This is almost impossible to do. We might not be able to save the earth because of this. Because, you know, the power of a paycheck, if someone's getting $100,000 a year and they're not even worth $25,000 or $30,000 a year, they're just a low-scale average guy or average woman making huge amount of money. Who do you think they're going to be with? You know, money talks. So, I don't know if we can do it. You know, the money in politics, it's used in all these subsystems that we have in government, all these agencies that are not directly governmental agencies, let's say, such as the agencies that do care for disabled people. They're not a government agency, like the Department of Mental Health, DMH. That's a government agency. But agencies that run a clubhouse, let's just say, like the May Institute or the Fellowship Health Resources or the VinFen agencies. All these agencies, they're making a lot of money. And we shouldn't be spending money on these types of things. It should be spent on people helping people. I had a project that I wrote up the other day on the value of a housekeeper that would come in every day to a disabled person's home. And that would be such a great bang for the buck. It's a stabilizing influence. You know, as opposed to, okay, if you want to go and talk to a therapist for a half an hour, talk, you know, that costs a lot of money. That probably costs, for that half hour or hour, that probably is going to cost you, you know, a good 2 or 3 weeks worth of the same value you would get with, you know, a good counselor every morning. You know, there are some great people that can come in and do a little bit of light housekeeping and laundry and work with someone who's disabled. You got to be wise enough to put the money where it does the most good and not fritter it away on, you know, shrinks and pills and all this psycho baloney. That is, to my mind, very important, that we don't waste money in social services. But what does that have to do with greening the earth? Boy, if we spend all our money, wasting our money on things like, you know, waste of money social service systems, I call it societal services systems. Well then, about 1 minute to go, I think I have here. Now look, we're gonna be dead in the water. We're not gonna be able to green the earth and sea. If we're gonna green the earth and sea, we gotta tighten up all around, 360 degrees. We gotta get this boat in shape. And the money in politics with the Scannell Amendment is huge. I'll mention that again later on. All right, that's the Scannell Agenda. Thanks for watching.